Hello lovely people, BBQ. I made this enclosure and today's going to be a very quick video. We're going to test this Alpine HDZ subwoofer. So I do apologize because for the last few days I didn't do anything. Actually I did something I can show you as well. So this one, all this area was exactly the same like this, sloping back. So I had to dig it out and put some pavement tiles. I made a step here as well, so that's one. As well, I did a few of these for my wife because she's planting, what is it, raspberries, red currants, black currants, and all that stuff. Now back to car audio. So in the previous video, we tested some of the smaller 10-inch drivers that I have in a small, very small 0.3 cubic foot enclosures. And I did test this Alpine HDZ in a massive ported box. You've seen it as well. And I said that that enclosure is way too big and tuned way too low for the subwoofer. So now I made a test enclosure which is 1.1 cubic foot net, which is taking away the driver displacement. It's something like 0.9, close to 1 cubic foot for this driver, and should be close to optimal. I will have this enclosure as a test enclosure for other drivers. I will put this one as well, the Alpine RS shallow mount, because we know that it needs a bigger enclosure. I just want to see what it does in a bigger enclosure. As well, we're going to put the dates in, and as well, probably I shouldn't announce this in advance, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I might get the new Helix 10-inch subwoofer with additional weights. So I'm planning to test that if everything goes through, and maybe a few more different subwoofers. So it's going to be like a mini 10-inch subwoofer shootout. But in this video, I'm just going to very quickly take a frequency response measurement, maybe do a sweep. The thing is, with the sweeps in the very back, when you have this box in the front, there's nothing rattling there. So whatever you have, the data like the distortion and the impulse, what you have is the actual representation of the driver. However, in the boot, since this is absolutely not treated at all, I do have some rattles, some buzzes, some stuff happening. So whatever shows up in the measurement with the distortion and the impulse, all the environment that is the boot can contribute to that. So take those measurements with a pinch of salt a little bit, but the frequency response is going to be the same no matter what. And obviously I'm going to very quickly tune it, show you how I tune it, and towards the end of the video I'm just going to give you my quick impressions how that subwoofer sounds. So this is all the box that I made. I didn't sweep it up. I'm just burning some. Oh, warm. Little one is going to take a shower and I'm going to go and measure the subwoofer. Okay, this is a frequency response and it's not bad. There's no crossovers as always. And to be honest, it's very nice. The only thing that we really have is here at about 67. So this is the cabin cancellation. And for some reason, I have this one. We saw this in the previous measurements as well. So I think that's another thing caused by the cabin. And now I'm a little bit concerned for my infinite baffle subwoofer, because the infinite baffle will play all the way down. And if there's going to be a dip at 26, that's not going to be nice. But in this enclosure, it does play all the way down. Surprise, surprise. And there's another bigger cancellation here above like 150, but this doesn't really matter at all. So the question is now, what is the difference between a large and small enclosure? So this is 1.1 cubic foot. And if you remember the other one, the ported that I had, and I covered the port. And for some reason, like this one, it's much more nastier. I would assume it could be maybe there's some resonances in the actual enclosure that cause these massive dips and peaks, because same location with this different enclosure, there's nothing. The response is much nice. You can see there's no such huge variation in the response, which is interesting, but the trend is kind of the same, kind of very similar. And for some reason we have a little bit more low end if I align both of these responses somewhere here. And the ported we saw from the other measurement is this. So this was the large seal versus ported, and we have all of these dips in these measurements, so it could be because of the actual enclosure. However, this one we have a much nicer response. There we go. So another question is, how does it perform? Let's go to overlays. Let's check the distortion first. Oh, so one thing that I need to know, that with this, I didn't take the measurements exactly the same level. What I did, this one, It's not there. I had to tone it down by 8 decibels because these measurements I took about 90, but this one, the smaller one, I took closer to 100. So I had to tone it down by 8 dB just to match, just to show you the response. So in reality, the level was much higher. So again, it's not a very fair comparison, but it's fine. The distortion is very similar. We can say it's kind of the same. Everything above like 150, I would ignore it, but everything else is kind of the same. With the ported, we had same as well. So there's no really big difference between small and large enclosure for this driver. Now let's have a look at the impulse. This is the new impulse. This is the impulse of the same in large enclosure. It's kind of the same, but I want to say this new impulse is tiny bit better because you can see with the larger enclosure we have this bigger peak, this bigger peak, this bigger peak, and this. So yeah, we can say that the impulse improved by making the enclosure smaller. However, if you remember, this was the ported one. So yeah, large ported is a massive difference between these two. But if we're comparing just the size, similar, but the impulse is better in a slightly smalled enclosure. Because somebody asked me in one of my videos about the front subwoofer when I tested, what would happen if you put that, the shallow mount RS Alpine in even small enclosure, would the impulse be even better than that? And I was like, I cannot put it in a smaller one because it is an as small enclosure as possible, but from this, kind of we can say that yes, the smaller the enclosure, the better the impulse, but you're losing obviously the bottom end. Now in the group delay department, this is new, large sealed. There is a bit of a difference, especially at the lower frequencies we can say. So the large, you can see it peaks here and here at 24 and 35 hertz. However, this small enclosure has a group delay peak at 30. So all in all, I don't want to say that it's very different. So I would assume that group delay is kind of the same between large and small enclosure. Obviously, if we add the ported one, yes, ported here, if you remember, between 20 and 30 is massive group delay. But yeah, not that big of a difference. So how did I tune it? Just very quickly, this was the response of the whole front and it's not as nice as I tuned. And again, we discussed about this in RTA in Cars Facebook group, and somebody said that if you take two measurements at different temperatures, different times of the day, they will be slightly different. And yeah, because I did tune it, it was linear, and now we can see a little bit not as nice. So probably the temperature affects the response. It is much warmer now compared to how it was before. So there you have it. If you remember, I had this dip which was the reflection from the driver's side mid bass. So just for fun, I just tried, and just to show you, this is when I apply an all pass filter on the passenger side at 144 hertz. So you can see that all pass filter removes that dip. But if you remember, I did mention in the tuning video that this dip is removed by the passenger sitting in the seat as well. So I just wanted to show you that the all pass filter works. It doesn't totally remove it. Probably I just need to play with the frequency and the Q of the all pass filter, and it would be possible to remove it, but just want to show you. So this was the response of the subwoofer with 90 hertz crossover, and to be honest, I just left it like this. I didn't EQ it at all because it's nice. It's not that bad. There's a little bit dip here. You could have a little bit more level there. And these, just left it. Down to 30 is fine. Below 30 kind of drops off. And again, this I think is going to be due to my car, due to cabin dimensions. But it does play low. It does play very nice. So when everything's summed together, what I did, if you remember, when I did the Alpine, the shallow mount, I did mention that that shallow mount had so little level that I had to pull down my front end. So in this case, this driver is dual 4, so it was wired parallel to 2 ohms, so obviously I had more power for it. So I could raise, I didn't reduce the subwoofer, but I raised the whole front end by 5 decibels just to match it a little bit better. And again, this jaggedness, just ignore it because the measurement was, I'm really in a rush today because like, look, 7 o'clock, I need to go shower the little one and put everything to bed and tomorrow go to work. But I just wanted to show you a little bit progress, and I wanted to put the subwoofer so I could listen to it for upcoming week when I will be going to work. So the response is just because the moving microphone method was like, I don't know how many averages, but very few and very rough measurement. One more thing. So what I noticed in this car, it's much quieter than the Insignia. So I will need to revisit the house curve that I'm using in this car, because with the Insignia, I had much more bass. And I did notice that in this car, I need less. So I did notice while I'm driving, I constantly need to turn down the bass at least like 20-25%, because it's too loud even on a motorway. So yeah, quieter car means that you need a little bit less bass, so that will need revisiting. First impressions, it sounds very nice. I want to say it sounds better than the shallow mount, just because I have much more low end. It has a bit more authority, plays like, I don't know, I want to say like thicker, maybe just because of the level, because from that shallow mount I couldn't get the level that I wanted. But I'm planning to put that shallow mount in this bigger box as well, just to see what we will have. But first impressions, it's very nice. It's much nicer, miles better compared to the large Enclosure, even when it was sealed. So yeah, this subwoofer likes slightly small enclosures, and it plays much nicer. So next time when I will play with other subwoofers, I will tell my proper impressions after a week listening to it. But for now, first impression, I'm very happy, but we will see how it's gonna be later. So that's it. I'm gonna go. Daddy duties are waiting. Thank you very much for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next one.